Welcome, guys, to another VC Wisdom Pod. Today with us, we have Debneel Mukherjee. He is founder and managing partner at Decacorn Capital, startup mentor at the FinLab. This podcast brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start, scale, or be invited to a podcast like this one, podfire.com. Deb, welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your companies?
Thank you, Charles. Thanks for having me. Yeah, for us in Decacorn, we are a stage-agnostic VC. We basically look for the best in class, in line with our tagline, the world is our oyster. So wherever they are, we try to go for them. Ours is mostly a curation story rather than mentoring or backseat driving our founder story. And in this avatar that we have been investing over the last 4 years, without any design, if you look back and see the footprints, about 65% of the portfolio is in America and in USA, to be precise. And then about 20%, 19 to 20% is in Israel. In Israel, mostly these are deep defensible technologies in terms of cybersecurity. That's one of our verticals or concentrations that has happened more by default rather than design. Other than that, of course, like everyone's portfolio, we have AI playbooks, but not those which we are seeing now, post the ChatGPT fancy, but mostly what we have done with big data in between, say, 2018 and 2020, 22, when the transformer technologies first came out, courtesy Google. Other than that, we have some exposures into space technology, and now we are focusing big time in tech-led productivity gains on the thesis that dull, dangerous, and dirty will all be done by machines, and we will be super efficient in the process, and technology do not take away our jobs.
Questions for you. I have your portfolio here: Snap, Spot, Lyft, Palantir, 23andMe, Postmates, SpaceX. How did you find these companies, and what did your investment in these look like, and what did your exit look like?
So most of these that you talked about are our exits today. They were essentially playbooks that we started off with. And each one of them had some narrative of that. But if I look at it, the rationale or the logic behind investing in them, there was one single common denominator, and that's inflection point. Like SpaceX, we invested in them when they managed to take their rocket back. And the year before, if you really look at it, they lost everything, whatever they send up. And everyone has written them off. And that's where you have to really make it. You have to have that conviction bet. And that's what somehow we went after, believing in contrarian and yet being correct, yet being right. Because contrarian and wrong, that's a terrible place to be. At the same time, there's simply no value in the crowded space, doing what everyone else is doing. You have to be an antithesis. You have to be a rebel mind. And you have to question every narrative of our world that the civil society throws at you or at us. And those are like lemons. We try to make lemonades out of it. So that's how we have moved into each one of them. And somehow we have become more lucky than good. The time when we went into these, most of them were unknown, unheard. Today, they are household names. Today, everyone knows about them. But not then. Say Palantir, nobody knew them. And today, even if you look at it, there is more skeptics out there. A lot of people will still think, God knows what's going on. Valuation seems to be too high. I mean, we hear the same things. You hear those even for the listed disruptors like Tesla. But then when you see a few and you know that your narrative is to be contrarian yet right, you're looking for inflection points, you over time build that conviction that makes you stay on. Investing is not so much about courage to know, the curiosity to know, or courage to act, but more importantly, patience to wait out. And that's what we try to do.
The contrarian bets. I mean, I consider myself to be a right contrarian, so most of my bets are good. I'm actually calculating these to make myself accountable on that. But what is your formula there? Do you measure multiple mega trends? Do you measure the product via the market and try to make predictions on how is this target moving? It seems like an incredibly complex calculus. Is that spreadsheet calculation, and in the end you just follow your gut? What is your process?
Again, rebel mind, and throw away whatever we are taught in the business schools and in your CPA classes and CFA classes. You never look at business models. You never look at competition. You don't look at the landscape. The first thing you need to start off is with people, because the people is the only one who makes all the difference. There could be a great idea, but then idea is just 25% of innovation. 75% is execution. Like for Apple, the big problems are not of solving or getting cutting edge products wonderfully designed, but the bigger problem is how you make on the launch day or on the date of those being available all over the world in Apple Store, when everyone else is struggling with supply chain, when there is COVID. Similarly, like for Tesla, the big problem is not solving the battery, but big problem is scaling up. And those are very basic stuff, but then they make all the difference. And that's what essentially we need to focus on when we are working on them. So the people, otherwise we are looking on the wrong. And the reason, the rationale, why they are doing what they are doing. Is it just because they want to get rich and retire rich? They have lost their corner of his job and then looking for the next, don't want to do another job, and it's much more cool to become your own boss. That's how you are doing a startup. Or you really have some hard skills and you want to take a pot shot at the big problem that your hard skills may help you solve. I think those are the kind of analysis, mostly qualitative rather than quantitative, is what makes a lot of difference in or the way we try to approach the issues, or try to look at when we are looking at this maze and try to pick up we are looking for the rare gems.
And how do you pick up on, I mean, you still look at business models. You understood that Tesla was about shipping cars on time and scaling and probably building factories that can automate that. Apple, well, shipping a product at the same time with impeccable branding. How do you find these insights out? Is it by reading quarterly reports and making micro bets before analyzing those?
No, not at all. I think quarterly reports give you nothing. Nobody will tell you anything meaningful in the quarterly reports. All these analyst calls that the companies do, they are all farcical, in our opinion. And if anyone benefits out of them, it's basically the traders in the stock markets or the competition. And honestly, like I have a belief, Apple never sends anything patentable to the patent office. They probably send to the patent office all those things they have decided not to work at, or they want to mislead their competition in believing that they are working on them. Still today, look at, see, life is investing and life. They are all about simplicity. We miss the simple models. Where is the Coca-Cola's patent? Can you tell me? Nowhere. It doesn't have. And so hence all this, that's where we have to really question the narrative of our civil society. And once we start doing that, you will find the slopes.
So what you're saying is that like 90% of information that's out there is pretty much fake. It's humans playing games and you need to dig deeper?
Yeah, of course. Essentially, tell me, if I have a magic formula, why will I say that in the analyst call? Right? Unless it helps me shore up my stock price. Then that's not how you run your business.
Do you talk to people?
That's why you see all the value is getting baked in the private world. Today, I give you some statistics. I think 54 million is where Amazon came for an IPO in 1997. 9 years later, Google came for an IPO at 24 billion. 6 years later, Facebook came for an IPO at 120 billion. If you have bought them on the IPO, you have made most money on an annualized basis in Amazon, then Google, and then Facebook. Essentially because companies are staying private far longer than ever before. And there is huge liquidity on the sides that are funding these companies for staying private if you are doing something meaningful. And so the whole value is getting baked while they are in private. So we have to catch them while they are in private.
I think simplicity is like a key of your brain crunching a bunch of data. So it's like starting complex and getting like simple afterwards. And simplicity helps to make us feel good. I think if you mean by simplicity like a gut decision, I do understand that, but it feels like I need to crunch a bunch of data before making these decisions. My next question to you, and you can comment on that if you want, is do you talk to people? And if so, who do you talk to? Do you talk to folks working at the company? Do you have a mastermind? Do you talk with your partners and brainstorm with them, like Charlie and Buffett? Thoughts on this?
Yeah, of course. We do a lot of brainstorming, and that's basically towards micro trends. One of the best things is like lying down on a moonlit night and looking at the star grazing and thinking how our world will be looking 5 years or 10 years from hence, and where the technologies will change our world for good. So if you look at our website, we have given 5 or 6 essential platforms which we think will change our world in terms of technology innovation. And then once we nail them down, we try to go on the other end, from macro to micro, from top down to bottom up, and then start looking for people who are doing some incredible work in those spaces. And in that, the most important people you need to talk about is the founders, and figure out why they are doing what they are doing.
That's quite important. We'll touch on that later. For the 5 to 10 years prediction, what's your track record on that, off the field and on the field? Off the field meaning that you sat down and looked at the stars probably 10 years ago, you predicted a future. Has that future happened? And also tell us on the field, your investments, how bright were you?
Right. So obviously everything will not happen. You have to go with a huge margin of error. But most important is an open mind. The day you realize that you were wrong, there is no ego, no prestige. You have to wake up and just change your course. Take that U-turn. And whenever you wake up, it is dawn. The earlier you do that course correction, the less correction actually you have to do to get back to the course. So we have missed a lot of stuff. We have felt a lot of things will do well. Like we one day thought blockchain will do far better than what it did. It did not. At the same time, we were spot on with AI. We have been doing these AI investments, which were more on big data. Because to us, we realized around 2018 when the transformer technology or in the white paper came out in Stanford in 2017, that we have tons and tons of data. So data is like the next oil, but you need to know how to massage it. You need to make meaningful outcomes out of that data. Otherwise, that data is going to drown you into analysis and paralysis. And therefore, whoever were playing into big data is what worked for us. And then when we saw anecdotal evidences, we went after them. And that's how we had some of these opportunities, like in Palantir, very early in the day when nobody even knew of them.
What year was that?
That was about just at the beginning, 2017. Palantir made its IPO, I think, in 2021, 4 long years. And that too, it would never have happened so early if there wasn't COVID.
Right.
Then let's look at it like we realized very early in the day that today software is eating our world. And it's a cliche. Everybody almost is saying that. But look at it. Most of these softwares are all application software. Now, where is that investment and the effort is being made to protect these softwares from being hacked, from being manipulated by the perpetrators? So therefore, cybersecurity has to be a great place to be. And then when you start looking for good companies in cybersecurity, you will land up getting them, not getting a few of them in a pile and pile of stone. You will find a few gemstone out there, but then they're also available at a mispriced valuation. And that's most important, because price is what you pay and value is what you get. And that's what it worked. No, and you don't have to wait for Russia attacking Ukraine to go in for doing cybersecurity stuff. That's too late. The party is over. Same is with ChatGPT. I mean, we are consciously avoiding anybody who tells us, oh, I am doing a ChatGPT plugin. We don't, our main take, and we could be horribly wrong here, OpenAI is not going to be the lone player here or the only winner here. And it's not going to be winner take it all workplace. In our opinion, the original innovator in this space was Google. Google stayed on a slow track for several reasons. And suddenly they were taken out by OpenAI on the fast track, backed by Microsoft. But then if you really look at it, there are other players who are doing incredible work in this space. When we look at that autonomous driving, right, like 5 years hence, what we will see in our world, gas stations are gone. We will only see charging stations. And mostly there will be one standard, and that will be Tesla standard. The current Ford, GM, all joining the bandwagon literally establishes this point. Secondly, what we will see, most of the cars on the road are probably will be driverless. And they will be there at some point in time, sooner than later, we will see autonomous ride-hailing platforms. So the Uber drivers will no more drivers around. These are incredible AI stuff. And who is doing this? And for this, what you need? Data and data and data, tons and tons and tons of data. Every time you drive a Tesla car, Tesla is getting these millions of data for them to mine. Therefore, the chances are that they will do far better job and make it to the T before anyone else. And surely much before Waymos and the likes of their world. So those are the kind of true real AI work that is happening there. In front of them, like that LLM stuff, or we are talking about a ChatGPT wrappers we are talking about, they are incremental. They're great, grand. They will make our life far, far superior. But literally defensible, deep defensible AI work is happening there. And that's what we have to catch. Like today, you see in economics, we have always learned that if you put a lot of money into the economy, which you did by that 3 trillion bazooka due to battle COVID, you will end up seeing a runaway inflation. We did see that. Then there was huge spike. Never in the history of America, any Fed governor has raised interest rates by 25 times, from 25 basis points to 5.5%. Never ever. Volcker did it one time from 10 to 20. Yet, we should have been reeling under recession today. Yet, we have a robust job market. Much of that is because of tech-led productivity gains. Too much money chasing too little goods, and then the goods are joining in. So that's how the only way the equation balances itself. Otherwise, simply no way we can figure this out. Why is this happening? We should get into recession. There should be huge unemployment, which is not happening. And that's where we need to get in. So we are focusing today big time on tech-led productivity gains.
Let's start with Palantir, shall we? So, okay, enterprises getting hacked, huge ransoms, more criminals being online, population growth in many poor countries around the world and the payday to steal from your own country is less good, so you go online, right? The governments don't have the infrastructure to control that, nor they care. Actually, they're hacking other countries and other companies. Now, does that mean more hacks? Does that mean more cybersecurity? For example, I'm a product market fit guy, and cybersecurity agencies, they're not easy to sell. Why? If you start from first principles, humans don't fix shit until it hits the fan. So that's a tricky one. Yeah, there's other trends in the case of Palantir. They deal with the government, so they had like many bets, right? And I guess you knew these bets, and you're hedging on these bets. Another one is that the U.S. government and the military spending, it's not going down, right? So that's like a good bet, and that's why I'm also really bullish on Palantir. Plus, you've looked at the founders, the Kirkman, or I forgot his name, quite a oddball. I would also bet on him. Plus Peter Thiel's there to supervise. So yeah, very bullish on that one. OpenAI being not the main player, I believe they'll become the Google. I believe they'll become the back end, quite literally. Google, I know that they are preparing like a special shot, but Bard is so bad. I've never seen anything as bad, and they're super slow. I think Google is an old man. I don't think they're gonna win, and that's, I mean, even with their secret weapon, which is DeepMind, and it's not so secret. Yeah, I'm quite bullish on Altman and OpenAI there. Although we've seen some worrying signs. So you make it simple, you make it sound simple, but your brain does crunch a bunch of data. So my question is like, where do you get that data, and how do you get it in your brain so that you can have a gut feeling of I'm investing into them?
By digging and digging and digging. Like, for example, Palantir, it's not because, in fact, if they're just doing government, Palantir will not get the valuation. A lot of people will stay away from Palantir. They will even tell them that you guys are evil and you are helping the government to spy on us. Remember, in cybersecurity, there are three actors. One is the state. The other are the perpetrators. And the third who are the nerds who do it for fun. So it's not just that. If you look at today, almost 50% of Palantir's revenues are coming from the private sector, the data that they're mining for big organizations who have tons and tons of data, but doesn't know what to do about it. And most of their solutions to most of their problems lies in the meaningful crunching of those data. So that's a huge migration. When we had started investing, they have nothing other than Gotham. And today, if getting 50% of that bigger pie, they have grown on an exponential basis in terms of top line. That talks a huge thing about them, that transition, or the migration, the value migration that they have achieved.
Two questions for you before we finish. Would you invest in Anduril, and would you invest in WorldCoin?
No, I have no idea about them. My universe is narrow. I don't try and go and see everyone. I know I cannot do everything. I will rather focus on few things that are conviction, and I will always try to dig data to ride on my confirmation bias. At the same time, always backtest and validate a second bias called what if I am wrong bias. Contrarian and wrong. And that's where we keep looking at. And the day we are convinced, like for example, Google, jury's out, what you're saying could be true. Because someday these companies also have to die. But when we see those writings, we won't delay even a fraction of a second. We will be not like those who will still believe that Intel is out there to rule the roost in terms of the processors. Intel's journey has been lost in 2007 when they failed to walk up their talk to back up Steve Jobs. And that's where everything went to ARM. So these are things that are happening around us. And that's why we have to stop reading the mainstream media. For example, Apple. The media is telling us quarter after quarter, Apple's revenues are going down. Sideshow. To me, to us, the most important show is user base is going up. That's the moat. If 350 million people require, even out of that 1.4 billion, for a change of phone in the next 1 year or even in next 2 years, what's the TAM?
Right. And just seeing all these iPhones, it's such a prestigious tool. It's an affordable luxury. I think Apple, their moat is really that Apple logo, their brands. You know, like they attract me with that prestige thing, and they keep me with the UX, you know. So it's interesting. And yeah, basically you're picking like some sectors. So EV being possibly one. That's why I asked for a franchise, because it's also military. It's like the Palantir of hardware, sort of. But yeah, like last question, and maybe you're also not interested in that company, but do you think Nvidia will become the company with the biggest market cap in the world?
Can't say about biggest market cap in the world. I think Nvidia has to do a lot of work to become biggest market cap. Why I tell you, because it's essentially an hardware company, and the throughput in hardware is far less than in software. If somebody becomes a real biggest market cap company in today's time, looking ahead in 10 years, it should be Tesla, because it has a huge addressable market. It has a monopoly status. It has no one close to him, and the existing operators, the internal combustion unit engine players, they have lost it big time because of their denial. So that should be the one. In case of Nvidia, it's a extremely credible company, and it's really I'm a fan of what Jensen Huang has built in there. And we like this kind of analogies where original founders are still on the saddle rather than being handed over to professional managers. And in those kind of thing, Nvidia is a incredible play. But I don't think it will get there as the most valuable company of our world.
So I have
still remain. If anyone can snatch that from Apple, it will be Tesla.
Interesting. I'm bullish on Tesla, not for the car reasons, but just because I think they're expanding into other markets that are interesting. My prediction is that there are some populations that are growing, right? Nigeria being one, and LATAM, for example. But I think the car ownership will go down. People like me, digital nomads, new and fresh thinkers, they don't want a car, they want to stay away from these. They know that they're dangerous. Now that will change with automation and these cars self-driving themselves. So there will be a huge market for that. And yeah, I'm super bullish on Elon, just like always. The guy is just again, a total alien.
For our take is, I completely agree with whatever you talked about. And my only submission will be, Tesla is not a car company.
Yeah, and it's like a robotic company.
Tesla's biggest revenue is going to come from not automobiles.
Right,
but
bots,
solar.
automation. Oh, solar. What?
From solar, from clean energy, from battery storage.
Yeah, battery storage. But so I'm not bullish on solar. What have you seen on solar?
We will see.
Solar.
I think they're really doing something meaningful out there. And see, one of the most incredible part of this kind of companies which are built to last is for them to constantly discover new revenue streams. Look at one day when it was setting up the charging network, people used to howl at them. I don't think any Wall Street analyst has even made any modeling around the revenue that can be generated out of the charging stations. And what is today happening? It's becoming at least the standard in America. And America sneezes, the world catches cold, right? It was 1929 when 6 world central bank governors had to collude together to put us in deep depression. Now, 5 of them are all gone into oblivion. Now you need only one central bank governor whose policy faux pas can put us into recession. And that is Jeremy Powell.
And that is for another episode. Thank you, Debneel, for showing up today. Love picking your brain there. Where can people find out more about you?
Oh, LinkedIn. I make posts there. Encourage people to come there and read about the posts and leave their comments. Always happy to learn.
There you go. And I am Charles Cormier, your host. If you want to start, scale, or be invited to podbuyer.com.